Alright, what's going on, guys? So I'm gonna do another Python video, but I took some of your guys' considerations. I know some people said that the last video was blurry. Uh, it looks like apparently it auto defaulted to my stream settings, which your stream bit or your stream resolution has to be lower because if you tried to upload a full amazing video while streaming, it would definitely throttle your upload. So I have it lower, so that should be the problem. I also made this bigger for us. I'll clear this out because they, for some reason, I thought I was typing on, but we're gonna do a new file. But anyway, so let's get started. So last episode, I'm gonna try and cover some of that stuff again in case you guys did miss it, because I don't know how bad the video was for some people. If you try to watch on a phone or something, you probably couldn't see it at all. So what we're gonna do is just try and cover a little bit of that, and then also dive into what we're gonna keep going with. So first things, last episode we covered basic stuff. We covered strings and variables, that type of stuff. This time we're going to cover a little bit more of what kind of different types of inputs there are and things like that. So again, we covered variables last time, so I'm not going to harp on the variable thing, but I am going to just explain it again, only because I want you guys to, again, like I said, if you missed it, I want you guys to see it. So again, a variable is simply a name for something. So name equals, and we'll say Zach. And then if I were to print name, okay, and then run this, okay, we'll save it as episode 2. Okay, and you see it prints my name Zach. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and get back to it. So that's what all a variable is pretty much a thing that you've saved. It can be an integer, it can be a number, it can be pretty much anything you assign to it. So we know what a variable is. That's pretty simple, right? But now do we know what kind of data inputs we can actually have, okay? And what kind of different data types. So we obviously know if we do a variable like that, right? So if we did name equals, right? You notice we always put it in quotations. The reason for that is basically that's specifying that that is now a string, okay? What that means is a string type is text, basically. So if we were to put name equals, we put a number, it's still going to print it the same, right? But then if we went print and we did name plus 18, okay? Let's see what we get. So you notice we get an error, okay? So the reason we get that error is because we specified that that is a string. If we did the same thing, but instead of making it name, we just put 18 plus 18, we get 36, okay? So that's just specifying what kind of data type it is, okay? And that's a string. So a string is text. It's going to read it as text. It's going to print it exactly. It's not going to read it as an integer. So that brings us to our next one. An integer is numbers, right? So you can do, and we'll just do that on here so we don't have to keep saving the file, but you can do 24 plus 23, okay, 25 times 34, okay. You can do any type of mathematics, right? So we'll just do 12, or we'll just do some random numbers, and if I could find the divide, something. All right, whatever. So I accidentally put a comma in there. I didn't mean to, but anyway, you get the point. An integer can be any type of number, basically, okay? And except for negative. So negative numbers have their own type. We're not going to dive too much into that right now because we're not messing with negative numbers right now. The big thing is you know that there's strings, integers. There's also what's called F strings. We'll cover that. That's a new thing. F string is just the format, so it allows you to basically add two values together and consider it one value in a sense. And we'll cover that because I know that might not make sense. So we have strings. We understand what those are, just basic text. And we have integers. We also have Boolean factors. Okay, so a Boolean factor is, let's say we say 1 equals 1. Can't assign to literal. Yeah, okay. So we'll say number equals 1. Okay. Actually, we don't even have to do that. We'll just say 1 equals. So if you do 1 equals 1, it's trying to assign the value 1 to a variable named 1. Okay. Obviously, we didn't want to do that. If you do double equals, it's actually going to compare it. Okay. See, it says true. That's a Boolean factor. Boolean factors are true or false. That's it. So is it true? Yes. Is it false? False. So basically, if I say, hey, for instance, I'll show you guys, and that's why I have this pulled up here. I'll show you guys, this is a very simple sign-up program. So basically what it does here is it prints you to register a new username for it, okay? And then the new user is the variable that we put. So whatever name you want to register, it checks. Is it in our list of users already? If it is, that's true. So that would mean it's a Boolean factor true. Okay? So if it's true, then we're not gonna let you register a new user. If it's false, we're gonna let you register a new user. Okay? So that's basic concept of a Boolean factor true false. Really that's all it is. So if I did 1 equals 4, false. Doesn't make sense. It doesn't equal 4. So that's Boolean factors, okay? And there's different things like that. There's called float numbers, which are negative numbers, or decimals. I mean, so like if I did 1.25, that's not technically an integer type. It's a float number, okay? I'm just looking down here on my notes. So keep in mind, guys, one thing that I definitely want to keep harping on is I am not an expert in Python, okay? I use it for pen testing, which is why if you're an expert in Python watching these videos, you will see flaws, okay? And what I mean by that is you're going to see some sloppy code at times, but I'm teaching you guys how to use Python simply because it's been requested, number one. Number two, with my pen testing and my CH videos and things like that, these type of things will help out a ton if you know how to use it and edit tools and things like that. So again, I'm not going to direct this to Python hacking or anything like that, like some people wanted, because I think you need to understand Python in general, and some people might enjoy Python and just start coding rather than hacking, which is fine. So there's one other thing that I want to cover in this that, so first off, we'll cover F strings just so they make sense to you guys. Let me pull up this one. So F string is, let's say, first name. We'll just name it first. First name is Zach, okay? Sorry, my Alexa went off there in the background. I don't know if you guys heard it. Kind of freaked me out there. So first name is Zach. Last name will be Stuffy. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. Okay. So that's pretty easy, right? So now there's a couple things we could do here. We could just say print, and we could say first plus last, and that'll print my first and last name, right? Now, it'll print it all as one. We'd have to put a space in there, whatever, that's fine. But there's another thing we can do here. And basically, it's create another variable, right? So if we wanted to call on them separately or all together, we can say full name equals F. And give me one second, I have the syntax here because I don't really use these, but it is something that's good to know. The reason I don't use it, simply, I'm not a coder. Like I said, I don't do this every day, all day. So I don't have really a necessity to use it, like adding the variables together that often. But this is a new, so this is new in the newest Python release. But basically what you're going to do is you're going to do full name is basically just F. Again, that's just for the type of string, F string. And then you're just going to do your typical first name. So we'll do first plus last name. Okay? And then basically what that does is it actually just adds those together. Okay? Same as the last one, The difference is now I don't have to do these the two separate ones. So when I call upon it, I can just say full name. Now the reason for this, if you guys don't understand why you might want this, is basically, let's say you're coding a video game or something, right? And you don't want people to have to refer to the full name every time. Okay, so it's kind of like your parents, right? When your parents talk to you, or when someone talks to you, they say, "Hey Zach, hey Zach, hey Zach." But when someone's mad at you, right, they say your full name, um, stuff like that. So there's times when you're not gonna want the full name printed all the time. Same thing with any variable. You might say, let's say you have a menu, right? And you have a variable, you created a menu with Python, and you have pepperoni pizza, sausage pizza, blah, 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 blah. And you can have those as variables that say sausage, and that equals sausage pizza, something like that, right? But there might be times you want to just say pizza. Well, instead of having to make all those different variables, you can have it combine the two. Okay, so now when we print full name, we'll go ahead and run this. Yeah, we'll save it. And you can see here, the other difference is it actually added that space for us. We didn't have to add that space. That's not really a big deal. I mean, you can easily go like this and then run it and get the same thing. But you notice that space is still there for us. That's nice. So keep those things in mind. That's called an F string. Not very complicated. Same thing as a regular string. You just add them together. Okay. So we'll keep that for now. But that's an F string. Not really a big thing. Now, what I do want to cover with you guys is kind of looking for some flaws in your code. And what I mean by that is, let's say this is full name, right? This type of stuff happens all the time. Let's say I do that. I just misspell something. Because when you're looking at thousands of lines of code and you misspell something, you need to know where to find it. So look, okay, and it says right here, trace back most recent call, okay, file, line 7, okay, and it tries to find the error for you, and it will typically. Line 7 in module, print full name. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go to first. First thing I'm going to look for. I'm going to go to line 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and there's that print full names right here, print full name right here, and it shows me where the error is. That's really important that you know how to do that. It looks really simple, but it's important that you see it and you understand it. So there are times where I would say I recommend you purposely put errors in there that may be harder for the system to find or pin down, and some of those will be something like this. So print, and we'll just do, okay, and we'll just say whatever, and then we'll go do that, and then go down to the next line, say print, now if you already spotted the error, great. If not, we'll see what it does. Okay, so luckily this found it before it even ran it, but if you just tried to run this, the error is not going to necessarily give you a line number necessarily. It'll try to, but depending on what's next, right? Let's say I actually had a new line down here or something, or where it's not an actual error, it's just not printing the way I want. Those are things that are going to be a little harder to find, so that's why you need to understand really understand detail orientation, things like that. So I definitely want you guys to try that stuff. Try and force it to give errors that are, again, harder for it to find. Try and assign like an integer and then use it as a string, things like that. And there are ways to do that stuff appropriately, but that's not one of them. So the other thing I want to tell you guys, there's a lot of people, so luckily this compiler here actually does it for you. So what I mean by that is it'll actually do stuff for you. So we'll do like, we're going to cover lists anyway, so I'll cover lists first, and then I'll show you what I mean. But a big thing with coders is spacing and tabbing. So luckily, Python is one of those, I think it's lucky, some people don't like it, but Python will not work if the indentation is not correct. Some programs will still work, but they look sloppy, just all in a line, okay? Python is not one of those. It will not work, okay? So that's important to know where the indents go and things like that. So now we're going to cover a list. So we'll say list. So we'll just name it, we'll say names, okay? And we're basically going to name list, and the names will be Bob, comma, John, comma, Tony. I'm just making these up as we go. And we'll do one more. Carl. Okay. So this is how you make a list. This is how it's formatted, okay? The reason that's important now is we can do a couple things. Obviously, we can print it. So we'll go ahead and print. So we'll say print, and we'll say these are the names in the list. We'll just do that easy, that simple to show you guys, okay? So now we'll run it. Okay, these are the names in the list. Well, I guess I probably ought to print it, huh? So these are the names in the list, and we'll actually go ahead and say print names. Okay, and you see the format it's in. It actually prints the list exactly. So what if we wanted to print them individually, right? We don't want them to look like that. There's a couple different ways, but this is the main way that we're going to do it. So we're going to say for, okay, name in names. So what this is we're specifying, we're now saying this is going to be the variable, okay, that we're going to be calling upon next. So for the individual variable that we name it here in this list, this is what we're going to do to them. Okay, and see how it auto-indented for me? That's what I'm talking about. That's awesome. Okay, and I think I actually already have one of these open. Where is it? Not really. It's a little different. But anyway, okay, so it auto-indents for me. So that's why we know the indentation's good. So what we're going to do is print name. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to run a for loop. So it's going to go to each one of these separately and print it individually. So what it's going to do, it's going to go to the first one, and it's going to assign Bob to this variable name, okay? And then it's going to print that. Now it's going to go to the next one, assign John to this variable, print that, okay? And it's going to run through them. And you see the difference is, now, obviously I would have taken out this above because it's still showing, but you notice that now it's Bob, John, Tony, Carl. So the use of this, okay, so the use of this is simple. So let's say instead of for name in names, we just want to print the name. What we'll do is we'll print hey, and then we'll say space plus name, and then we'll say plus welcome to the club. We'll say it's a club now, whatever. Okay. So now you notice it's going to welcome everybody individually. Okay. So the for loops are very useful. Okay, when you want to do something individually to each one, whether you want to compare them, whether you want to do anything to them, you can see here. It's a lot nicer to be able to say, hey Bob, welcome to the club. Hey John, welcome to the club. Hey Tony, welcome to the club, blah, blah. Okay? So you can see if you had, let's say, for instance, in hacking, right? Let's say you have a list of IPs that you want to do an nmap scan on every one of them, right? You could say for IP address in the IP list that I have, okay, run this scan, okay? And it's going to go through each one and run that scan. It's going to do it for you. It's a way to automate things, if you will, okay? So that's what I want you guys to practice this week, is I want you guys to practice for loops with lists, okay? And we're going to cover more on lists next week, and we're going to cover a little bit more on not just lists themselves, but kind of what you can do with them and stuff like that. But keep that in mind. And also, when you're thinking of a list, okay, if you're thinking of it in the sense of like this script right here, or this program here where you're signing up for something, okay, you don't have to, don't think of it as a list like this. Just use the list as a placeholder for now, but think of it as, like, for instance, this could be a separate document with encrypted names and passwords, okay? The reason that's important is because when you are signing up for something or registering for something, obviously they're not going to have it just blatantly in the code, because every time I turn this program off or exit it, it's going to revert back to these users list. Okay, it's not going to keep them added in there forever. When you do it to a separate file, it will add them to it when you write and read to a file. So keep that stuff in mind when you're doing these things. Try to think of it in those terms of, a list is basically, it starts at the beginning in these programs, but you can also use lists in other text files and things like that where you can edit them and it'll remain throughout, stuff like that. So keep that stuff in mind. I'm going to try and keep these videos about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes each one. So we're right at 20 minutes. I'm going to leave it there, guys, and let me know what you guys think. If you guys like this series, let me know in the comments, and make sure you subscribe, and we'll try to keep doing these at least weekly. If I have time, I'll try and do them bi-weekly. But that's it, guys. Make sure you practice. That's the only way you're going to get good at these. You have to practice, practice, practice coding. I mean, I don't even use it every day, and I notice myself get sloppy with it if I don't go a couple days without using it. So make sure you're practicing. All right.